So, you know, the basketball stuff is in the past, but I do carry it with me. And I'm trying to, just be, successful in my career, whether that's with the basketball or not. I'm just trying to prove to everyone that I can do something other than basketball, which I feel like I've been successful at so far.
Hello and welcome back to The Next Act. My name is Keaton Hall, joined by my co-host Matthew Roop. Today's unofficial sponsor is watching world sporting events that happen every 4 years, like the Women's World Cup that begins later this month. U.S. women's national team will try to repeat again like they have past 2 decades, so that'll be fun to watch. Our guest today is a former basketball player who has experience at the pinnacle of men's Division I. He had a standout prep career, earning Michigan Class A All-State and 2015 Lansing State Journal Dream Team Awards before walking on at Michigan State University. He was given the Tim Bulgrakis Walk-On Award before he worked his way into a scholarship player on a stretch of historical MSU teams. He was a 3-time academic All-Big Ten, 2-time NABC Honors Court recipient before graduating with an undergrad and graduate degree. Ladies and gentlemen, the one and only Connor George. Connor, thank you so much for joining us today.
What's going on, guys? Thanks for having me. I appreciate all the intro. Love it.
Absolutely. Had a lot noteworthy stuff that had to recognize, so for sure.
Nobody fluffs you up quite like Keaton does, so.
I know, I was about to say, yeah, keep it coming, man.
Yeah.
Hey, I try my best. But you're someone who I've wanted to interview on this podcast for a while now, so don't want to prolong anything. I want to start with your first act of basketball and being a student athlete. You played multiple sports growing up, including hockey and baseball. What about the sport of basketball made you love it more than the others and want to pursue it at a college level instead of those other sports?
Yeah, so baseball was always like my first, real love. I loved baseball. It was my favorite sport growing up. Hockey was, I played it for a little while. I actually stopped playing it in like 5th grade. I played it like recreationally, but I kind of had to make a choice like at that age level, which is kind of weird.
Yeah.
Because it's in the same season as basketball. So it was kind of like a toss-up. It's like, what do I pursue? And
Yeah.
at that young age, like, how do you know? So I just liked the game of basketball more than hockey, so I pursued that. Kept it rolling with baseball and basketball were my two main sports, what I played in high school. But eventually I just hit a growth spurt like my sophomore year, which kind of helped. And looking back at it, I might have been a better baseball player. I have no idea. But like at the time when I started growing, I started seeing more success and like started working harder at that sport just because I kind of loved the team aspect. And yeah, baseball, there's a team aspect in that too. But the flow of basketball is just it's so fast paced, and I could kind of control how hard I work and like how I can become better in basketball when I'm working out.
Yeah.
You can make leaps and bounds in baseball as well by working hard, but basketball, I just love being in the gym always, and nothing quite like playing in front of a bunch of fans with the student section and whatnot in high school, and that kind of made me fall in love with basketball and want me to, I wanted to pursue that in college.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I wouldn't stress too much about your decision between baseball and basketball. I think you did all right.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Thank you.
Yeah, as you kind of continue to kind of progress in your basketball career, how much of your identity did you feel like was tied up in basketball? Like how much of that, was derived in your identity?
Yeah, I feel like everywhere I went, it was kind of, basketball was who I was. And I tried as much as possible to not give off a persona that's the only thing that I can do. You know what I'm saying? So talking to everybody, no matter if it's fans or, just family, friends, or just people walking around, just try to not be so much of the basketball guy, more be the Connor George kid and, shake everyone's hand, and kind of be professional in that sort of way. And the basketball was always tied to the name, but I always tried to make sure that it was always, if I was meeting people, it was always Connor George, and then the basketball came after. So I don't know if that answers your question or not, but that's the answer that I got.
Yeah, no, that's completely I mean, I have a similar experience. I think every student athlete has that experience. Once you get good at a sport enough, especially to be at a collegiate level, like that's how a lot of people know you. And so that's what
Mm,
they automatically associate you with. And I think, at least for me, having to kind of wrestle with that, like, okay, is this who I am, or is this like kind of more what I do? And like,
mm,
am I able to have a separate identity outside of that? Like, that's one of
yeah,
the things that is tough, because the sport of basketball brings you a lot of success, and obviously you want your identity to be tied to success, but then having that outside identity is a huge thing that I think everybody wrestles with, for sure.
yeah. I would 100% agree, and I can even go on and on about that even further, but like keep it short and sweet. But you see a lot of guys too. I'm sure a bunch of your teammates and stuff like that, tried to do that. And some people might have succeeded, and you kind of see some of the people that failed at it as well.
Hmm.
Basketball was all they had, and sometimes people already know like that is what they're gonna do outside of college. For
Yep.
me, I knew that probably that wasn't gonna happen, so that's where I was.
Hmm. Well, and that leads into my next question. So your mom, Cathy, was the Michigan State volleyball coach from 2004 to 2001. And the George name was known and respected when you walked onto Michigan State campus. So by the time you graduated, you had created a name for yourself alongside your mom as a fan favorite. I mean, so many people that I know, a lot of my friends from Michigan State, like, you were one of their favorite players because you were always on the bench having energy when you weren't playing, and when you were playing, like, you're out there making winning plays. So I mean, how could it not be a fan favorite? But what were the best and most challenging aspects of going from like the coach's son to number 41, Connor George, and creating that identity for yourself?
Right. That was kind of a big thing for me. Like when I walked on my freshman year, is how am I going to tackle that
Hmm.
obstacle? I felt like the best thing about it was obviously everyone in the athletic department sort of, they knew me, and my mom was a part of the MSU family, so I was family to them, already.
Hmm.
So I knew them, and my mom being such a great coach, I mean, I knew what it took to be playing at that level because I've seen it
Yep.
my whole life. So that
Yep.
was probably the best part about that. I would say, you know, I had to make my mark early. People didn't. Not everyone on the team knew exactly who I was. Not even everyone on the team knew that my mom was the coach yet of
Yeah.
volleyball. They'd figure it out later. So I got to make a name for myself and say, hey, like I'm not here because of my mom. I'm here for everything that I did in high school. And for some of the people that, you know, thought that I was only there for my mom, that was what I was trying to, that's how I made a name for myself. I would practice hard, go into practice, earn a scholarship, like gain respect in the locker room and in those offices at the basketball, at the Breslin Center.
Hmm.
I was just trying to make a name for myself and signal to everybody I wasn't here because of my mom. I was trying to make a name for myself. But there's definitely a lot of pros and cons of having your mom in the athletic department. And I loved it. I'm very glad that she was there and she was a part of it because I got to see her every single day. If I
Hmm.
wanted to, I could take a day off if I wanted to, and then I'd go back in and see her, every other day if that was the case. But
Hmm.
no, definitely, just working hard, knowing what to expect, which my mom helped me out with. But yeah, just grinding every single day and earning your stripes or your number.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
awesome.
absolutely.
Obviously, mom helps you out in more ways than one. Obviously, but that's awesome.
Mm,
So, I
yeah.
mean, throughout your career, I mean, you went to a Final Four in 2018, 2019, which included beating a Duke team that many had chosen to win the tournament. The player side of March Madness is obviously much different than kind of what happens in the public eye, what we perceive watching from home. What was that run like from your perspective and from behind the scenes? What was that kind of process like?
Yeah, so it's kind of funny. I'll tell a story real quick about before the season even started. I mean, we're on like game five. I'm talking not before it
Hmm.
started, but like game five, we're watching Duke as a team, and we got a bunch of players at our house, and we're watching Zion and everyone, and we're like, that is a team that we do not want to see in March. Like, we're like, hopefully we do not match up with these guys when it comes
Hmm.
tournament time. Just put us in another bracket on the other side, and then obviously the year plays out. We have a good year. We're expecting a number one seed. We get the number two seed, and obviously we see Duke up there by that time, it was kind of like before we won the Big Ten championship that year, we were like, I hope we see Duke. I think we can beat them. As the year went on, we kept watching them because like they were fun to watch. So we would watch it. We'd get home from a game, we'd turn on the ESPN, see highlights, watch games, and I mean it's kind of crazy. But once we saw the draw, we knew that we were going to get to the Final Four. All we had to do was, we had to win obviously our first two rounds, and then we had LSU. That was going to be a tough test. And we thought once we get through LSU, we're gonna beat Duke in the Elite Eight. So a lot of film, a lot of preparation. It's a lot different than what people see at home. Obviously, you're tied up in 64 games at once, or whatever it is, 68 teams now. But a lot of film, a lot of practices, no days off. I'll tell you that much. We didn't have many off days in tournament time. But then going to those facilities are awesome. I mean, it was the coolest experience ever. Duke was by far my most favorite game that I was a part of, and I'm sure a lot of MSU fans can agree that was one of the best MSU games that they've ever seen. Not just in those 5 years that I played, but overall. It was a lot of fun beating a guy like Zion, taking him out. I get to say that I was a part of the team that took Zion out. Zion played his last collegiate game versus me, so that's kind of cool too. But the tournament's always a lot of fun, and I wish I could be a part of the tournament every year.
Right. No, that's awesome. So your role on the team, you did a lot of scout team. So you had to study the other players on the team, probably more than the starters did. So you could replicate their mannerisms, how they come off screens, how they shoot, their offense, inside and out.
Yeah.
How was that process preparing for a team like Duke and then a Final Four? How was that process different for you in terms of your approach than it was like in a regular season game against like Long Island or something like that?
Right. So I would say preparation's always the same with Tom Izzo. So every player on scout team, at least, when we're on scout team, you're right. We do concentrate. We key in on our players. So I got to know all the plays for the opposing team, like the back of my hand, so that way in practice we can run them at full speed, so they can defend them and see the actions. But in general, like we have every single lineup. We go into every game thinking every team is great and can beat us.
Yeah.
So the mindset was always the same. We did have a little bit of internal, like, we know what to do. We got to gear up. It's the Elite Eight. We're playing for the Final Four. So you have that type of intensity. The intensity level might have been different inside our heads, but Izzo didn't act any different. It was just another team. We're going into scout. Thomas Kithier, Zion Williams. Thomas Kithier has to do that. So I was like, hopefully you can develop some springs in your shoes for the next 2 days. Because,
right.
Whatever. But he did a great job, honestly. I swear to God, he did everything Zion did, and we were well prepared. And that's the biggest part of scout team is getting our team prepared to see, we know who the matchups are. Whoever's defending me knows what I'm going to be doing, and I'm only doing that. If a guy goes left, I will not dribble the ball with my right hand the whole entire scout. So prepared, over-exaggerating the opposing team just to make sure that we know that they're going left if they're going left, and if they can't shoot, we'll give them 3 steps. Shoot it if you want. We're not going to let you beat us at the rim.
Yep.
So, the game plans, the effort that the coaches put in to have us prepared is top notch, and I'd like to see another program do it. I wish I could have seen another program do it just so I could see how much different it is. But it's crazy.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. I love hearing perspectives like that from a player because I had my fair share of scout team practices in years, so definitely know all about that. Last question about your first act. What's a favorite memory aside from that Final Four run that you have from your time at MSU that some people might not know about?
Yeah, so I got 2 real quick. So I always forget about this one, but on the way to the Final Four, the first game we played Bradley, and we were out with an injury. Kyle Arns had just gotten injured, and Matt McQuaid was in foul trouble. So I subbed in the NCAA tournament first half. Wasn't really expecting it. and we were down 38-39, and I got fouled. So I have to go to the free throw line at the end of the first half. I'd been playing for like 5 or 6 minutes. I forget how long it was, but it was a good stretch. And made 2 free throws to put us up by 1. And then we just never lost the lead. So it was kind of like, it was kind of cool, like putting us up, and what I can remember that.
Yeah.
And that's kind of cool to say we got to a Final Four that year, like a year that I kind of helped, like contributed in the NCAA tournament, did fine on defense, made those free throws. That's something that I'll never forget.
Absolutely.
So that was a cool experience. The next one is probably Miles Bridges coming onto campus, and we're in camps and we're practicing for the first time. And I obviously knew he was highly touted, and he was a great recruit and he could jump. But the first practice, I can remember just being like, oh, like, okay, he's our best player. Like, he's gonna be dunking on dudes from the get go. And like first practice, we're just doing layup lines, and I remember like getting into the rebound line and like watching him as like turning around, walking backwards, like watching him like dunk. I'm like, okay, this is a different animal. But I mean, weirdly enough, that's a memory that like really sticks out to me, just because I was like, this guy is elite. Like I haven't seen a guy like this, but yeah,
Yeah.
weird story to tell on that question, but it was kind of fascinating.
No, that's awesome. That's why I asked the question, because
Yeah.
you wouldn't think
You
about a
probably
story
didn't
like
think
that.
that was coming up.
No, but I love it. I love it. Well, because especially what makes that story even more special is the fact that the other freshmen in that class were Nick Ward and Cassius Winston, like 2
Yep.
really good Michigan State players.
Yeah.
And to have him immediately have this presence about him, like that, he's the best player, is crazy to experience for sure.
It was wild.
So great first act. Want to transition into life after that once it ended. So in the time after you retired, what did it feel like not having your life scheduled around being a basketball player like it had been the past 15 to 20 years?
Yeah, it was definitely a big difference, kind of a big change. Like I didn't really know what to expect. And I didn't even know what I really wanted to do. So it was kind of scary for a little bit, but definitely the no practices every day was really nice. I'm not gonna lie to you. I was like, oh shoot, I could watch TV for 4 hours and I don't have to do anything, But
Yeah.
so it was a lot different. I had to figure out, kind of that schedule and kind of what I wanted to pursue. And obviously, I got my master's in my degree in communications, but trying to figure that out. And then obviously without the practices, you had to figure out how to be scheduled and, work on that after post college basketball. I definitely missed it after like 2 weeks. I sat on the couch for way too long, and I was like,
Yep.
I kind of miss basketball. And, I try and play as much as possible now. Still do. I still try and get out on the courts and play and whatnot. So it's a little different because now I can just play for fun. I'm not getting, I can just relax on the basketball court, which is nice, but I definitely miss it. And it was a challenge to get accurate, like just used to, not playing basketball. And not luckily, but we had COVID, so I still had to finish my semester.
Yeah.
And COVID shut everything down. So when basketball was done, I still had to finish my schoolwork and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But then we, try to get a job. But
yeah, and
that
you
was a
mentioned
unique experience. Sorry,
No, go ahead.
I was just gonna say before you asked the question, I was just gonna say, like, all 3 of us graduated in that spring of 2020, so that was a unique experience that all of us like had to go through and try and figure out, especially because we went on spring break and they said we'd be back after 2 weeks, and then everything was it was unprecedented to say the least. So it's definitely a unique time to be a student athlete that had their career come to an end.
Yeah,
and
it wasn't that fun.
And I feel bad for you guys. Like my season was already done, so for me, it honestly helped my transition because I wasn't missing anything. Right, my season was done. There wasn't even a spring season to be involved in. But your guys, it's like it was just done. Right, like so abrupt. What were some of the challenges that you kind of had to deal with? With the abrupt stop, or since you've gotten into retirement, what have been some of the difficulties
from COVID?
Yeah, or just starting with COVID and then after that, some of the difficult adjustment periods.
Yeah, no, it was definitely like right when that stuff stopped, and then you still have a semester left. You're just like, what am I gonna do? Especially me, because I didn't No. I got my master's in sports and arts and education with a specialty of sports leadership and coaching. So I thought I wanted to be a coach, and then I realized I didn't. Like as I'm finishing my master's, I'm like, I don't want to do this. So now I got to figure out a whole different route, and I have to start networking and finding something that I'm passionate about outside of basketball. Because during those 5 years, you're so involved in basketball and school, but not figuring I didn't do a good job preparing myself for what I really wanted to do after school. So it was
Mhm.
kind of it was very much focused on basketball and getting good grades,
Yeah.
not so much on the okay, what am I really gonna do when this ends? So
Mhm.
trying to talk to people as much as possible and figure out what interests me, and what I could possibly do after school was the biggest challenge I faced. And then luckily you meet the right people and you get encountered with a good job that you end up liking and you're passionate about. So
Mhm.
luckily that's kind of what happened for me is once I got my job, I didn't look back, and I've stayed in that same professional line of work ever since. And it's all panned out pretty well, I would say. I had no regrets. So
Mhm.
That's awesome.
yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't realize that you were on track to be a coach before graduating, because that career path is completely different from something else, because you have to go through, most of the time you go through GA positions, then you work
Yep.
your way up to other assistant coaches at like high school, lower level, college basketball, and then you work your way up. And
Right.
it's just, you have to pass it out for you. So it was almost like you had that structure. And then I'm glad you did find out before you started it, because so much work.
Yeah.
But then once you pivoted, like there's not that structure laid out in front of you. So that's definitely a huge thing to have to try and adjust to, for sure. Um,
100%. Yeah.
how did you try to replace the basketball and athlete part of your life and identity? Was that something that you looked to replace, or was that something that you felt that was kind of missing right away, or was that something that you didn't really feel a whole rush to kind of replace right away?
Yeah. So in what I'm doing, I still try and carry the basketball. It's a part of who I am, and it's like a part of my story. So
Mm-hmm.
as much as it's not, I don't play anymore. Like it's something that I am proud of, and will go around saying and talking to people. I don't necessarily say it. I'm not coming up to people and like, yo, what's up? Like I played basketball,
Yeah.
in college. That's not what I'm about, but
Mm-hmm.
I definitely am proud about it. So if it comes up in conversation, like that is part of who I am, which is honestly it's helped me, and it's I've tried to be professional as well. So like you gotta be smart about how you play it. So you keep it with yourself, but you're also professional to a point where when you're talking to someone, you can have those conversations without basketball involved at all.
Mm-hmm.
And I definitely tried to let people know and be aware of the fact that I'm not just a basketball player. I can do X, Y, and Z, in order to work and start my professional career. So, you know, the basketball stuff is in the past, but I do carry it with me, and I'm trying to, just be, successful in my career, whether that's with the basketball or not. I'm just trying to prove to everyone that I can do something other than basketball, which I feel like I've been successful at so far.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a great way to go about it, right? I don't think you need to totally completely separate your acts in life, right? I think
Mm.
you should be able to carry, certain values and lessons that you've gained in your
Yeah.
basketball experience into your new act and
Yep.
profession. So, kind of looking back on some of those lessons, is there one in particular, or one lesson, one characteristic that you've learned from your basketball times that you now have brought into your new career and into your life after basketball?
Yeah, so it's important to be structured and have that structure. And MSU has, taught me not only, how to have a good structure in your professional career, but also how to work hard and be successful, in whatever it is. I mean, nothing's ever given to you, so you have to take it yourself. You have to earn it. Nothing's ever given. There's no handouts in the game of life, especially after athletics. You have to
Mm-hmm.
go out. You have to work, and you have to be very structured and disciplined. And I feel like all those traits are, kind of from college, having them in college, instilled in me has carried over to, the life after basketball. And those are some of the key things that I like to, replicate from my college career. And, yeah, I mean, I'd say those couple things right there are huge.
Yeah, and I think the part that really stood out to me, if you would have gone back and you would have told me the part about how you showed up every day to the scout team and you worked your tail off. I think,
Yeah.
Just from that clip, if you would have shown me that 4 years ago, I would say you have no trouble going into the workforce. Like, I want that guy on my team, right? You had the right mentality before you even started joining the workforce, right? Of how to be a team player and how to do some of that stuff. So there's no secret of why you found success so early.
Credit it all to Tom Izzo.
Yeah, it's hard to fail when you got a coach like that there to guide you and give you advice and coach you through certain situations. But as we kind of go into your next act, that was a great segment of the transition period. But you completed your undergrad and graduate degrees from Michigan State, and now you're currently working in the mortgage business. What are things you did and people that helped you get started in that industry, especially considering the huge pivot that you had from initially wanting to be a coach and now working in this industry?
Right. So that's a good question. Obviously, my mom actually helped me out a lot, in terms of of networking, and she's like, hey, you got to get your name out there. You're not going to be a coach anymore, right? And I'm like, yeah, I'm not going to be a coach. She's like, well, you got to start getting your name out there, getting your resume going. You got to do all this stuff. And she's like, talk to Coach Izzo and see what he thinks and see if there's any ways that, you can possibly, that he can help you. So I walked into his office as well, and, he actually introduced me to Matt Ishbia. I've met Matt Ishbia. He came to practices a lot, but I didn't know the professional Matt Ishbia. So that's a whole different ball game. It's like a whole nother person. So he got a meeting set up with Matt Ishbia. Actually, I had a couple meetings with a couple different jobs and way different many lines of work, and talked to Matt, and he was just such a he worked at United Wholesale Mortgage. He's the CEO there, and didn't know how important 15 minutes was until I actually got there. But that's like hindsight looking back. I'm like, I can't believe I got 15 minutes with him. Like, that's crazy. He's an extremely busy guy, but I did. He talked to me, and he loved the hard work, and he was a walk-on too, so he could relate to my story. So it was kind of cool. He talked to me about the business. He talked to me about what I could do, what my future was, what my path was. And he said, hey, come join our team. And I said, when do we start? So it was reaching out to a lot of different people. And then I ended up, using connections and using Coach Izzo, using, my mom even for help. And it just ended up perfect.
What about?
And,
awesome.
I guess to finish the story, I ended up at UWM. I don't want to stop. Yeah, whatever. I started working there. I've it's been great.
Was there one aspect of Matt's, sales pitch to you to join his team that you were like, wow, this is a guy that I want to work for?
Yeah, it was just his how genuine he is and how much energy he has. It's kind of crazy how I see how he's been so successful and established such a good company, and now he's doing a lot of other things, and I'm not surprised one bit of him, obviously, taking over the Phoenix Suns, and doing all that he's doing. It's just you can hear it in his tone of voice, how confident and how good he is at his job. He's a very smart guy, and you can kind of pick that up on the phone. So it wasn't necessarily so much of what he said, but it was how he said it, sort of thing. And he told me kind of the path, and he said, I would love for you to work with me, and I think that you will have a great future here. And I believed him because I trusted him, and that came in just a phone call.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, if there's a vote of confidence you want from anybody, it's that guy. So that's
yeah.
that's cool that you're able to kind of see that just from his demeanor and how he talks and the way that he talks. Apparently, it sounds like a lot of confidence and conviction in what he says. So when you hear someone believe when you hear someone talk that believes in themselves and what they're doing so much, it's hard not to want to join that and be attracted to
Exactly.
that for sure.
Right.
No, I love that. So with sports, and especially at a program as historic as Michigan State, there are defined goals and directions that everyone works towards to help them shape their daily structure and actions. So like you guys, you had a goal to win the Big Ten championship, get to the Final Four NCAA tournament. You guys saw that you could beat Duke and you wanted to get past them. So that all influenced your daily actions and the work that you were putting in to get toward and move toward those directions. After that's over, finding that new direction, that new guiding direction has been one of the most difficult things for me to replicate in my next act, because there's not something that you're not automatically going for a championship, because like you don't know necessarily what that is. You have to redefine that for yourself. What are some things that you've done to help you find that new long-term direction? And what are things that you do to help evaluate if your current position are in line with where you want to go career and lifestyle wise in the future?
Yeah, I mean that's a great question. I mean when I started, I didn't know anything really about the mortgage business. So what I would do is I would try and outwork everybody that I was working with. To be honest, like so that work ethic never changed. But I also set aside goals. Is corny cliche as it may sound, I'm the type of guy that likes to see where I'm at, and kind of set, that short term goal, that long term goal, just over a year. Each year I set new goals, see where I'm at, and that's kind of helped me. I still do it today. So I, that's kind of the indicator. That's my championship, and if I overachieve it, great. That's a championship to me. I'm like, hey, I'm where I need to be, if not a little bit more. If I don't hit a goal, which I haven't hit a couple goals, like it's like, okay, maybe we focus on this area a little bit more, and self develop in the role that I'm in right now to help me, become as good as I can be, in my profession. So I definitely think that writing goals down is a honestly, for me, it works. For other people, it may not, maybe another route, but goal setting is pretty big indicator for me. And then obviously, just working hard and knowing what you're doing, studying it, because nothing, like I said earlier, nothing's given to you. Everything's earned. So I can't go in there and outwork. I can't go in there and be better at something than someone. And that's not necessarily what UWM is all about. It's not about beating everybody, but it's like, you want to be the best version of yourself in the workplace. So, you got to put in that work as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Matt's follow-up question before you ask your question. Yeah. So you mentioned that you kind of transferred over the work ethic and outworking people from your time as a basketball player to this new professional arena. How did you redefine that for this specific industry? Because I know we knew what hard work looked like as a basketball player. It's going in, getting extra shots up, studying more film, lifting the weights. What does that look like now? Because outworking, obviously you're not getting more shots up to outwork your fellow loan officers, because that's not going to do you any good. What are some things that you did to kind of figure out what that looked like, and how have you kind of implemented that?
Yeah. So when I was at UWM, I kind of like to I shadowed a lot. So I was a sales guy at UWM. So sales. It was sales. So
Yeah.
so I don't have to describe that too much. But anyways, I would shadow the best sales people at UWM, and I'd be on the phone. I'd be listening to them. How do they do this? And then I'd just be asking a bunch of questions like, hey, how am I going to get where you're at? How am I going to get into your seat? Because there's a lot of people that don't end up in your seat, and that's fair. People won't, but it was all about asking the right questions to the right people, and people that want to see you succeed, really. So you create those relationships, you find that common ground between someone, and they're willing to help. So you find those people that you can connect with and rely on and you trust, and then you just ask for help. And obviously those guys were like veterans, those people that I would like to shadow, and they've been there for a while and they know what they're doing. So asking questions, asking them, how am I going to get in your seat? and then taking what they say and actually, for me, it was studying. Like I said, it'd be studying, because mortgages, there's a lot that goes into mortgage. I don't want to bore you guys too much, but there's a ton of things that go into getting someone in the right home. So you got to know all that stuff, and dive into the World Wide Web of Google. And whether it's that or any cheat sheets or whatever that we may have, you just got to look it over.
It sounds like all that prep that you kind of put in, all that prep that you put in for basketball, really translated into what you do now, right? You're well equipped to kind of prepare for your everyday job because you did that for 4 or 5 years at Michigan State, and obviously before that. So awesome.
Yeah.
So you were part of an elite stretch of Michigan State basketball. You had a few teammates go play in the NBA, play overseas, and obviously you were coached by living legend Tom Izzo. What sets those guys apart? What sets Michigan State apart, specifically Tom Izzo? He's done at the highest level for an extended period of time. What separates him from others?
I'd like to say it's just family. Like it's a family atmosphere. So I think that the culture that he's built there is insane, compared to the rest of the schools in the country. And like I said earlier, like I wish I could have been a part of a team, not play for them, but like just been a bug on the wall on a program just to see how much different it is. But for me, I mean, it's clear that the culture there that Tom has established is second to none. I mean, the family atmosphere. That's why you don't see a lot of transfers. I mean, there's a transfer portal full of 400 people in the country right now, and everyone stays for the most part. I mean, the percentage of kids that stay that come to MSU and play, it's very high, and that's because of Coach Izzo and the way that he keeps his program. And you got people coming from the NBA coming back to campus and showing these kids the ropes and showing them how they're going to get to that next level and be a part of a winning program. So I think obviously the fact that we've had so much success helps too, get those recruits, those highly recruited players, and then he does a good job of molding them. And when you're a freshman, you think that you're going to be in the NBA next year. He kind of he has a way of putting someone in their place and maybe saying, hey, let's give it a year and wait for 1 year. I know you may not be patient, but you're not where you think you are. So he does a good job of telling people how it is, and then letting them shine as their career goes on, and then they're ready. If they're ready freshman year, cool, go to the NBA. He's got no problem with that. Sophomore year, go to the NBA. But he really grows and develops people, and the culture there is phenomenal.
Yeah, that was one of the things I missed most about not having a team and being on a team is having a coach to tell you what you're doing wrong. Because a lot of times when you're in it, you think you're doing everything perfectly, but having someone that can come at someone that can see you and tell you what you need to be doing better, what you're doing wrong, that you might not know you're doing wrong. That's something that I missed like a ton about not being on a team, especially when the person that's calling you out, that they care about you and they want you to get better and has the experience like an Izzo. Like that's something that's tough to replicate.
Yeah, 100%. I know. If you made a three, you probably did something wrong getting the three. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's something in every play, man. You gotta watch that film, and sometimes you just watch it in slow motion. I'm like, don't watch this in slow motion. Just we made the three. Just move on, move
Right.
on. It's like we're done here.
Well, then I remember a story written by Graham Couch that he did on you, and he was talking about the NCAA tournament. You got in late in this first half, and he said that you got an open shot, and all your teammates wanted you to shoot it, but you passed it off, and all the coaches said it was the right play. So I feel like that's just an example of that for sure.
Yeah, because I can't shoot. Of course, it was the right play.
Bro, what are you talking about? You're the sharpshooter.
Oh man, yeah. That was funny. No, that's another story. But yes, that was a good moment, and that was on in the locker room later on. Like, good play. The coaches said that. It's kind of funny.
That's funny.
Yeah, and I think that's like a prime example of like buying into your role, right? So oftentimes when you're on a team, your roles are very clearly defined. Have you found that in the workplace, or is that something that you kind of had to, kind of find for yourself to kind of define your own role? How does that kind of transition for you?
Yeah, when I was at UWM, so definitely the role was established early, and there was a process and everything that we did at UWM, and you know and then training, like we did a lot of training as well, like for 0 to 2 years you have to be in these meetings for 30 straight minutes every day or every other day, whatever it may be, but definitely are in your role. I would say that there is some self-motivation in it as well, so even though you are in your role and it, you're trying to go get more, and I don't know, just be a superstar, I guess, at the end of the day in the workplace, and find some more loans and make some more sales. So that was, I mean, yeah, there was definitely those roles out there, but you try to exceed them.
Well, I think one thing that I've kind of picked up on as we've talked about this is that there's a difference between someone who can go through training and do all the work per se, but they don't become someone who has that knowledge that they can apply. And it sounds like you've been the guy that it's part of how you outwork people, is someone that you are going through these trainings, you're learning from people, you're asking questions so that you can become the person who knows how to do all these things. And
Mm,
then it just becomes easier and easier as you gain more experience that you can apply. But that's such a key difference, that because like a lot of people in school, they'll just study to know the answers for the test and then they forget it. And that
mm,
doesn't translate over into
right,
success in the real world, because if you go through all the trainings, but it doesn't help you close a sale or
right,
get a new lead on a mortgage, then why did you go through the training? So it sounds
right.
like that's something you didn't necessarily explicitly say, but it sounds like something that you've been able to pick up on and apply, which is huge.
100%. No, you hit it right on the head.
Going along with that, I think it's safe to say that everyone wants to be successful in their life to varying degrees. And sometimes it's hard to define in different stages of our lives. So, how did your definition of success change after your career as a player? How did you redefine that for yourself?
Yeah, so what I did is, like I told you, we were in our 0 to 6 month buckets.
Mm-hmm.
So, I would reapply it by saying I'm not trying to keep up with the Joneses that have, I'm not trying to be where those people are at 6 years.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of redefined success. I took an approach of saying, okay, I'm 24 years old at the time.
Mm-hmm.
How can I, make a living? I kind of
Yeah.
broke it down like that. I'm like, how am I going to make a living? How am I going to pay my bills? How am I going to, do all this? I had to map it all out. And then
Mm-hmm.
obviously the 0 to 6 months, I wanted to be at the top of that list at month one,
Mm-hmm.
and I try and stay up there. So once I got to month 7, I was trying to keep up with those cats at month 12. So, I mean, they were in the same bucket as me. But I mean, that was kind of how I game planned it. Try and be as successful as those people that were about 4 or 5 months ahead of me. And
Mm.
if I could do that and maintain like a close, distance, I felt like everything's going to pan out, and I'm going to be, eventually, through the years, I just keep learning and growing, everything's going to fall into place.
Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense. And it helps when you're trying to redefine that success. It helps having someone that's gone before you and kind of set the blueprint like you said.
Right.
So
Yeah.
it's nice to have that for sure.
Yeah. I wasn't trying to be the millionaire on month one. I'm just trying to eat, and you got to figure out, how you can make those leaps and bounds and those strides. So,
Hmm. No, that's a key distinction though, because a lot of times people feel like, especially when they see a lot of other of their peers and friends at
yeah.
a stage of life that feels like it's further ahead of them, it feels like they have to kind of get it all back. And like baseball, it feels like you have to hit a 10-run home run to try
Yeah.
and get everything back in one swing. But recognizing that, like, I'm just trying to eat right now. I'm
Yeah.
trying
Yeah.
to take baby steps so that eventually I can build up to that point. Like that's a huge recognition to not only have for yourself, but also kind of reconcile with, so it kind of resets your expectations and
Mhm.
your way of going forward.
Yeah.
And we're in a really tough stage, all three of us right now. Like all of our friends are at different points, right? We've got friends that have
Mm-hmm.
kids. Keaton just bought a house. I'm
Yeah.
living in my in-laws'
Yeah.
basement. Like everybody's in like a totally different stage of life. So I think you
Right.
made a key distinction of comparing what you did, right? You're going to get better every week instead of saying, well, well, Keaton bought a house, so that means I need to buy a house, or this person had this many
Right.
sales. I think it's important that you established early on that you were going to compare, what you were doing to, future you and past you, which I think is a key distinction.
Yeah. 100%. Yeah. It's weird, man. 26. Everyone's in a way
Dude.
different stage of life.
Totally
Dude.
2
different.
kids, 3 kids, no
Yeah.
kids.
Mm-hmm.
Single. It's wild.
Yep.
Yeah.
Now that you've kind of transitioned away from basketball, what's been your favorite part of life that you've gotten to experience now that you've had some more time on your hands?
Yeah, I'd say honestly, like I like honestly traveling and
Yep.
golfing and picking up like other hobbies. I mean, like we traveled a lot, but it was a lot different. I mean, we're in the film room when we're in California. We're not like on the
Yeah.
beach, so it's not like all glamorous and all this stuff. But kind of getting out there and meeting people, interacting with people, and um, going on trips and enjoying them for a couple days, a long weekend, and not having that obligation that you got to be back. Like, well, you do have to be back at work, but like you know what I'm saying. When you have some PTO and you can use them,
Uh-huh.
you can have some longer weekends and just enjoying time with family and friends, and picking up other hobbies. I mean, I'm golfing, trying golf as much as
Mm-hmm.
possible now. It's probably a bad hobby because I'm trying to play too much and it costs too much money. But
Dude, for
it's
real.
like you find things out about yourself that you didn't know in college when you're just playing sports. You guys, I'm sure you guys know that as well. But you find a lot of things out that you didn't know.
Mm-hmm. No, I think that's one of the most daunting things about that transition is that, I mean, especially in a scenario where you're at a college level, it requires a lot of your time. It requires a
Yeah.
lot of your energy, a lot
Yep.
of your thoughts. Like even if you're not at practice or in film, like chances are you're in some capacity. It's in the back of your mind. So
Yeah.
it's definitely a lifestyle you have to live. And when that's all you've ever known for an
Right.
extended period of time, once that's gone, like there's a lot of that was one of the biggest things that I found out was that there's a lot of things that are awesome outside of what I knew what was awesome about basketball. So
Yeah.
being able to go experience that was definitely, like you said, traveling. Like there's so many cool places to go and to experience and not be on a business trip and
Yeah.
be there to experience and relax and enjoy where you're at. So definitely agree with that.
Yep.
So, what's something that you're looking forward to as you continue to work towards success in your next act?
Yeah. Something I'm looking forward to is obviously so. We talked about UWM a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Since then, I've left UWM
Mm-hmm.
and now I'm a loan officer. But UWM, that was kind of the path. I mean, I was there for 3 years, and now I've been a loan officer for 4. So it's the
Mm-hmm.
same thing. I'm still utilizing UWM, and had the conversation with Matt, and he's like, go do it.
Mm-hmm.
And the next success is obviously I'm trying to get out there, and it's different because I'm not in a corporate office,
Mm.
so now I'm trying to get out there, get my face out there in Detroit, Troy, East Land, like wherever it may be. But I'm just trying to you know keep this pace up and getting my brand out there in this area, and helping people find. Honestly, I didn't think it was going to be a passion of mine. Mortgages. Who wants a mortgage? No one wants a mortgage. Everyone
Mm-hmm.
wants a house. But getting people in the right spots and helping them out like the most I can. Like, hey, this is the best deal for you.
Mm-hmm.
Finding programs. Doing stuff like that. Helping others, getting them into their dream home. I mean, Keaton, you just got a first house. Congratulations, by the way. I
Mm.
didn't know that. So
Thank you.
congrats. Like that's a
Thank you.
big step. Like that's a
Yeah.
nerve-wracking step, and like there's a lot that goes into it. Obviously, you've just been a part of it, but like
Mm-hmm.
it's a struggle for some people, and it's a big commitment,
Yeah.
and it can be overwhelming at times. So my focus is helping as many people out as I can, making that a lot less stressful. I just,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah.
to me, when you get to the closing table and you get someone in closing and it was a non-stress loan file, whatever you want to call it,
Mm-hmm.
it's cool because everyone's happy and like you're going into a dream house or a first home that you're excited about. So
Yeah.
that's, long-winded answer, but yeah, that's kind of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, in a position like a loan officer in the mortgage business, that your success is very dependent on the amount of loans you can get closed. A
Mm-hmm.
lot of people will view that I believe, in one or two ways. One, it's like, okay, I don't have a stable source of income because of this. And the other person's going to look at it of like, okay, there's so much that I can go get. And like, there's not
Mm-hmm.
really a cap on this.
Yeah,
And it sounds like you're in the second bucket of that for sure. And we
yeah.
kind of talked about, Matthew and I did an episode about this, but one of the carryovers from our time as athletes into our next acts is the difference between the mindset of making a play versus going to avoid a mistake.
Mm-hmm.
And the
Like
difference is subtle, but when you're out there trying to go make a play, and in this case it's carried over to trying to get people in the right home, and
yeah,
people notice that, like, your demeanor's different. Like,
yeah.
I'm sure Matt Ishbia, that's how he approaches things. Like, you can tell that you're out there trying to make things happen and trying to figure out what's right for who in what scenario, instead of being uptight and hoping you don't mess up alone, and you're hoping that you
Right.
find the right person, and you're
Yeah,
hoping you find the right home. So it's a very subtle difference, but I think it sounds like you're doing that, and that's a great way to be.
yeah. And people people person as well. Like
Yeah.
I can talk a lot, so this job comes a lot easier for me because some people are scared to talk to people and talk to realtors or talk to borrowers when something goes wrong. Like if something goes wrong, like it's all right. Pick up the phone, tell them what happens, and then you have a solution to it.
Mm-hmm.
And everything you close on time. Like that's the
Yep.
main goal. But like I'm not scared of that. I'm a people person. I like interacting with people, so it is the perfect job. I love it. So.
No, that's great. Well, Matthew, do you have any other follow-ups before kind of transition to the outro?
I don't think so. I think he covered everything.
All right. Hey,
You got it.
hey, I've loved this conversation so far, Connor. Kind of as we transition into the outro, I want to ask one more question before getting to that. Knowing what you know now, what's something you would go back and tell yourself as you came to the end of your playing career, about to go into a new phase of life?
It's gonna be a lot of obstacles and a lot of learning curves. A lot of learning curves. Um, Honestly, I wish I would have told myself earlier. Focus on what you want to do more, so you're not waiting around. But
Mm-hmm.
like going into what I was doing, like I wish I would have told myself. Obviously there's more questions to ask, and there's probably more studying that I could have done and gotten better at. So I would have told myself it's going to take a lot of work, and you're going to have to, work extremely hard. But shoot, where was I going with that? I just lost my train of thought. Come on,
No,
guys.
hey.
I literally had it. And then I just switched over. But obviously, oh gosh, guys, I
No, you're.
lost it. Just work hard. There's more questions. No one's out to get you, I guess. I mean, like, ask
Mm,
as many questions as you possibly can to anyone like
mm-hmm.
that you trust. Like I said earlier, but that's a key component to like starting a career. Some people can be scared to ask those questions, with any career that you face. When you're starting, like, always make sure to ask those important questions to people that have the answers.
Mm-hmm.
People
Yeah.
aren't going to hide them from you. You know, all the answers are
Yeah.
out there. So go get them, find them,
Yeah.
like, get better, you
Yeah.
know?
No, it's a great answer. Definitely
Thanks.
didn't definitely didn't feel like you lost train of thought at all. It flowed
Okay, good.
very well. And I think one thing to kind of follow up on that thought was, you said to ask more questions, and people aren't going to hold back the answers from you. A lot of times I found, like, you have this kind of initial, you don't want to bother a person and ask them a question, but a lot of times they're willing to answer questions, and they want to help you get to a
Yeah,
spot and answer those questions and find those answers. So it's definitely something to keep in mind, that can be a little bit daunting, but in
yeah,
reality it's not.
100%.
And I've found that that's an easy way to start like building relationships, right? Starting to ask
Mm,
questions, then you start to
There
get
you
to know
go.
that person. And then they know like where you're coming from, right? If you're coming from a good place and you're asking the right questions, they're going to be more likely to help you down the line. And right there, now you've got someone in your corner. So it can be a great way to
Right.
kind of break the ice as well.
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah, that's great. So now, before we get to our final two questions, I want to take a moment to acknowledge you for your accomplishments and also for the prolonged friendship over the years. We only
Yeah.
had a summer on the same team, but you were always the nicest and easiest teammate to play with, especially with, to me, as the new kid on the team with a group of guys that had been together for a long time. So I definitely appreciate your kindness in welcoming me with open arms for that summer, because it meant more than you probably know. And it's evident that it's continued throughout the rest of your career and life for sure. And then also for the basketball career you had, like the difficulty and the immense amount of work that goes into earning a scholarship spot after beginning as a walk-on, especially at a program like Michigan State, and like the mental and physical battle of absolutely grinding for 5 years without any guarantee of kind of seeing rotation minutes. It's something that I'm sure you've been recognized for before, but just wanted to make sure that I do it here because it's something that should not go unnoticed.
I appreciate it. And honestly, that means a lot. And the summer that you came on was awesome as well. I mean, I honestly wouldn't forget that year, to say the least. I remember the first open gym that you came, and it wasn't even a tryout. It was just an open gym, and Keaton was just bawling, and everyone's like, "This kid's on the team. Get him on the team." And it was a really fun. That was a really fun year. What?
West Side
Oh
Slammers.
yeah.
What a
Yep.
squad.
So it was fun, man, and I appreciate you having me on before we jet out after these next two questions. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Before those questions, well, first of all, thank you. But then, are there any you want to plug any social media or anything you're associated with?
Guys, just follow me on the IG. It's Connor George, man. Connor George 3. And
Mm-hmm.
that's about it. And if you have a loan, I actually did rep my shirt for this.
100%.
Premier Home and Finance, baby. If you guys are looking for some homes, got any questions, contact your boy.
You guys know who to go to. A lot of people that listen are in that phase of life, so you guys know who to go to now for sure. So now the final two questions that I ask all my guests, well, that Matthew and I will ask our guests now.
Yeah.
The first one is, what does a life well lived mean to you?
A life well lived to me is honestly just, when you can look back at your life and you have no regrets. Like, that you worked hard for everything that you've gotten. And again, I've said it 2 to 3 times, you've earned it. If you can look back on your life and you have your priorities in order. And for me, I do have my, priorities in order, I'd like to think. And as long as I can go into my old age thinking, I did everything I could and I battled to support, my family, hang out with friends, and have those things in my life, that's a life well lived. I don't need to be the most glamorous guy. I don't need to have the most money. I don't need to have the biggest house. And to me, just being, comfortable in where I'm at and happy, and surround myself with good people, it's a good life. Like, that's a life well lived,
Absolutely. 100%.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
that's
well, then our final question here is, when it's all said and done, how do you want to be remembered?
yeah. When it's all said and done, I want to be remembered, obviously, for making those 2 free throws and helping us get to the Final Four. No, no. I want to be. I want to be the guy that everyone liked being around. I like to say that I'm a people person, and I like to interact with anyone, whether it's someone that I don't know that's sitting, by themselves in a mall eating lunch. I'm gonna go up and I'm gonna, talk to them and interact with them and make someone's day better. And I want to be remembered as the guy that was respectable, honest guy, and that people like being around. To be honest, I've prided myself on that my whole life, and that's kind of it.
Well, I can say with confidence that you're well on your way to both of those
Absolutely.
things. So
Absolutely.
you're in a good spot for sure.
Appreciate it.
Ladies and gentlemen, make sure you go re-listen to that episode. You're going to want to hear those stories again. I'm going to have a fun time editing this and re-listening to all of it for sure. Connor, thank you so much for joining us today and giving us your experience. I know a lot of people are going to be able to learn from and apply some of the things and the wisdom that you've been able to impart on us today.
I hope it helped, and I appreciate the opportunity. Keith, Matt, it was good meeting
It's
you,
nice to meet you as
and
well.
Keith, I hope we can get together soon.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Yeah.
Well, if you haven't already, people, thank you so much for listening so far. If you are, if not, then you won't hear this anyway. But go subscribe to the YouTube, go follow all the socials so you don't miss more episodes like this with great people like Connor. Matthew, anything to add before we end this?
No, just very appreciative of the conversation Connor gave us, and obviously there's a lot of wise words in there, so listen closely.
Absolutely. Well, for me, I'm Keaton Hall, and for my co-host Matthew and guest Connor, let's make sure the best is still yet to come.